Right, hi guys, we're back. Right, so I'd like to take this opportunity to say good morning to everyone and welcome to the first ITWG kickoff meeting. I'd firstly like to take the opportunity for those who don't know me to formally introduce myself. So I'm Katie Miller-Crowler and I work for the TFWM in the PSI Directorate as a Transport and Innovation Coordinator. So I was tasked to create this wonderful and exciting opportunity, the new Innovation Transport Working
Group.
Group.
Do it like this, or do you come in your way, Chirag? I can't be bothered to listen to it on the headphone. I've got this, this session.
If people are just muting themselves whilst the speakers speak, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, whomsoever.
Just going to catch Katie. You're meant to be sharing slides at the moment.
Yeah, bear with me a second. The slides should follow. Here we go. So,
do you want to pop? Sorry, Katie. Do you want to pop that into presenter view?
Bear with me a second. Oh. How do you do that?
Just click on view, top, middle.
Yeah.
And then presenter.
Where am I looking?
Oh no, sorry, no, it's slideshow, isn't it? So slideshow, and then presenter.
Presenter online.
No, just do it from beginning.
There you go. Right. Okay. So sorry about that. I've never done this before. I'm new to doing all this, guys. So you have to bear with me a little bit. Sorry, I'll carry on from where I was. So basically, I've been brought in to create this amazing group, and my role is going to be coordinating the events and being the first point of contact for everyone. And I'm just looking forward to working with everybody. So I'm going to hand over to Devon Geary now from the Innovation Alliance to share some context on this group.
Absolutely. So if you could hit the next slide, please. You mute yourself, please. And then on your microphone.
Fab. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Katie mentioned, my name is Devon Geary. I am the Network and Partnerships Manager at Innovation Alliance for the West Midlands. And I'm going to give just a couple minutes of context for what this Innovative Transport Working Group is. As you can see, we've got over 90 people on the call this morning, which is I think record-breaking for any of our working groups with Innovation Alliance for the West Midlands. So thank you so much for joining us. This really is an exciting launch for this really cool topic as well. Next slide, please. The Innovation Alliance for the West Midlands is a top-down, bottom-up alliance that focuses on catalyzing innovation activity and stimulating a pipeline of innovation across the region. We are working currently as part of the West Midlands Innovation Program, which is where this wonderful Innovative Transport Working Group network fits. So again, we are focused on the top-down and bottom-up approaches. So really we look at working with businesses, working with public sector, working with third sector, with academia, and facilitating some of those cross-sector collaborative partnerships that lead to cool and new ideas. And I use that phrase cool and new ideas quite a bit when I talk about innovation, because a lot of times the word innovation scares people. But if you talk about doing something cool, doing something new, doing something differently, that's really what we focus on in Innovation Alliance for the West Midlands and our networks. Next slide, please. And again, please. One more time. Just to give us just one more time. Let's try one more. Oops. Back up one more, please. Well, we'll get there in a second when the technology loads, but that is a visual overview with lots of colors. If it'll load one more up, that would be helpful. But this is an overview of the West Midlands Innovation Program. So we've got the there we go. We've got the Innovation Board within the West Midlands Combined Authority that leads on strategy alongside our colleagues at the WMCA, who are the innovation team, the WMCA program team for innovation. I am part of the West Midlands Innovation Alliance for the West Midlands Core Executive Team, And Chris Lane, who I'll introduce in just a moment if you don't already know him, is one of our virtual innovation team sector leads for mobility. This virtual innovation team is what my line manager describes as the most fun she's had in her entire career. We brought together sector experts from 9 different sectors to come together, talk about innovation in their sectors, see how they can collaborate, and see what can happen when sectors come together. And if you look down on the orange box at the bottom under networks, the Innovative Transport Working Group fits within this networks pillar within the innovation program and is really about connecting up people from different sectors, different industries, and different interests to see what sorts of innovative ideas can come. We have Venture Fest West Midlands, which happened in March. Alongside that, we have innovation policy and practice events that happen quarterly. I can share a bit more about those by email if you're interested. And then we have the Smart Places Working Group, which I'll introduce. Actually, if you can flip the next slide, please. We've got the Smart Places Working Group, the Innovative Zero Carbon Working Group, the Innovative Health Working Group, the Innovative Manufacturing Working Group, the Cyber Working Group, and then now also the Innovative Transport Working Group. These 6 networks come together. We've got people from all 3 sectors who meet quarterly and have conversations and really collaborate on projects. So just you can obviously read the slide there. If there's anything else around the cyber community that's of interest, it's one of the most recently launched alongside today's Transport Working Group launch. And then we have an Innovation Insider blog series that Chris has contributed to that is also available on the Innovation Alliance website. Next slide, please. We've got the Innovation Accelerator that has been awarded to the West Midlands, as well as Manchester and Glasgow as part of the Levelling Up white paper. And just 2, please. I think should do it. Thank you all for your patience with the tech. We're having a bit of a glitchy situation with Teams. And then down just 1 more, please. So the Innovation Accelerator is something that we'll be talking more about in the coming months. It's just something to keep on your radar for any opportunities that come from the transport side of things that will be announced within this group. And yeah, it'll build on the strengths of the West Midlands Innovation Program and really level up the region in a core area so that the region can benefit from larger research and development investment from Innovate UK and other government sources. So next slide, please. And that's just some contact details for our website and Twitter handle, LinkedIn profile, and then a generic email, hello@innovationalliance.wm.co.uk. Stuart, yes, the slides will be shared after this session, and my contact details will be shared as well. So if you're interested in any of the other working groups, please let me know and I can get you added to any of those newsletters as well. So with that, I am very, very excited to hand over to Chris Lane, the Head of Innovation at Transport for West Midlands, who, as I mentioned, is one of our virtual innovation team leads. So Chris will share for a little bit on Transport for West Midlands support of this Innovative Transport Working Group. So Chris, over to you.
So I think what I might do is I might just share my screen. I know we've got this up at the moment, just to make sure we've got the slides working as I want them. Okay. So first of all, thank you. I was going to say it's great to recognise so many faces, but also to recognise so many names in the list. Thank you all for coming along. I think within the West Midlands, we've realised for a long time we can't solve all of our transport problems as Transport West Midlands on our own. So we felt it was really important, really, to take a role in facilitating this working group. So we're going to be the hopefully the hard work. When I say we, it's the grand we, so it's Katie mainly doing all the hard work for me, but we're going to try and look after the group behind the scenes and try and pull things together and keep you informed about what's going on. So we will be the administrator of this group going forwards. And I thought it'd be a good idea just to talk through what's the innovation landscape looking like at the moment. And I'll start off by thinking about what are some of our core reasons and motives for doing things. So we do want to see the region achieving economic success, and I think only by working together and potentially creating new opportunities together, new networks, new collaborations, we can do that, and we can move ahead of other regions. We want to create a fairer society. We want to support our local communities and places and see them grow and thrive. We want people to become more active, and that's a big part of transport. And the biggie for everybody at the moment, we want to tackle the climate emergency. So what do we do about helping our region and the place where we might live and work, or our companies might be, achieve that net zero goal that we've got? As Transport for West Midlands, we are currently consulting on our new local transport plan. It's a common sense transport plan. So we're looking at 3 pillars, and I won't go into too much detail on these. The first one is where people can avoid travelling, and we've all been working from home, not all, but a lot of people have been working from home recently. So how can we help people not have to travel where they don't need to? How can we create neighbourhoods where people have the facilities they need and have that local sort of micro-mobility or walking or active travel between those neighbourhoods? So how can we help with people's behaviours? How can we encourage the right type of growth? I was at a conference yesterday up in Leeds, and they were talking about some of the housing developments that are completely remote from anything else. So anyone in those housing developments has to drive. There's absolutely no option, and they're not really linked to any other facilities. So again, we need to make sure that we produce the right type of growth in our region. We want our streets to be safer, so we can walk and wheel. We want our public transport to work well and it be going to the right places and connecting people. We want to improve our network. So if we are travelling, we want to make sure that's a good experience and an efficient experience. So we really want a resilient network that can stand up to all the things that will throw at it, from climate change to big events to other disruptions. And then really that green revolution. How do we change that the way people travel? How do we make that greener? How can we improve that? So within our local transport plan, as Transport for West Midlands, these will be the pillars of work that we take forwards over the next years, and we'd encourage you to come and talk to us about how each of you could help with those areas. We are hopefully coming out of the pandemic finally, seeing the restrictions lifted. Still a lot of uncertainty around public transport, and I talked through where we are in terms of building back to pre-pandemic levels. But a really fascinating thing, our statistics are showing us that there are now more cars. We're looking at our motorway box in the West Midlands. There are more cars now than there were pre-pandemic. That might not be a surprise, but again, if we're thinking about sustainable, efficiently moving network, we might not have got that balance exactly right. So these were February figures in terms of the build back. Like rail was doing reasonably well. You are aware we got some challenges on that at the moment, but it was building back well. Bus was doing reasonably well, but still nowhere near back to pre-pandemic levels. But our local rail system was really suffering. So again, we've been telling people not to catch buses, trams and trains, and now we're trying to build that back and build in active travel. It doesn't mean we don't want people to drive, but again, we want to think about that core mode of travel for individuals in the West Midlands. We've been doing a lot of work in terms of understanding people and behaviour, so recognising that we are all different and our motivations for change are different as well. So we've taken time to think about how we might segment the West Midlands. We've used lots of different data sources, lots of commercial data sources to understand the makeup of our citizens across the West Midlands. We've created personas, probably a little bit deeper than we've gone to before, and you'll see some of those examples below. There's no typical person, but as close as we can get, what's that typical person? Actually, where do they live? What sort of communities do they live in? So by understanding that person and their motivations, what they buy, how they shop, how they make lifestyle decisions, we can better influence the interventions we put in terms of transport. And then we had a really great opportunity to create an online market research community. And we've been asking them all sorts of crazy questions, from things like 5G to what do they think of autonomous vehicles. And that's the mix of real people that we can go and ask questions about the transport network, about interventions, and get some feedback, which is really important, because as transport professionals, we may have an opinion, but real people actually are out there in the real world and they've got a different opinion to us sometimes. It's been quite revealing, some of those responses back. But really importantly for us, putting that individual right at the top, understanding their behaviour. And what do people think? It's probably quite obvious. People are dissatisfied with the unreliability of public transport to turn up on time. They felt the fares were too expensive. That's really interesting. We've got actually really good fares within the West Midlands, but people still feel the economic effect of all that we're going through at the moment. There's still concerns around safety and antisocial behaviour, particularly on bus, and it's more antisocial behaviour than crime. Fears of overcrowding coming out of the pandemic. And for those that drive the cars, people say, well, I'd rather drive my car. But even those driving the cars weren't happy because they're stuck in congestion. So again, we are talking to people, and we've got some of these sort of core problems that we want to solve, and we're working towards. So transport innovation now. On the right-hand side, you'll just see some of the test beds and work that's gone on recently in the West Midlands. So we've been the largest 5G test bed in the UK. We've run 13 transport innovation projects over 5 hubs, both physical and digital, across the West Midlands. I've done a lot of work on future transport zones and showcases. This is an example at Warwick University, where we put in demand responsive transport, scooters, bikes, car clubs, to understand what again changes behaviour. We are passionate about trying to create a digital road network to move away from just the physical stuff to have an improved digital road network. Bottom left, bottom picture on the left hand side there is the urban airport at Coventry. Some of you might have had a chance to go there. Really looking definitely at the future. What's the future of drone and electric vertical takeoff vehicles in the West Midlands? Fascinating day if you're there. I think it's still there, but have a look at that. And then on the right hand side, our connected and automated mobility test bed. So a place you can develop the new service coming forwards, the new automated service. On the right hand side, we've got customer at the top, absolutely critical. So we're really, our insights into the customer drive everything else that we do. We are looking to create a mobility as a service solution across the West Midlands that pulls together in a seamless way all of those modes, public and private sector modes. And around that, we're looking at living labs where we can. We're looking at those new modes, including e-scooters. We're looking at different ticketing, looking at contactless ticketing for the West Midlands. We've been experimenting with mobility credits. How can we encourage people to move away from a private car? And data is really fundamental to us. And then what's the role of connectivity? So I just wanted to give you a feel for some of the things that have already been happening in the West Midlands. And I know some of you have been involved with us in that. But again, this is the sort of stuff we're doing every day. And what are we looking at as we go forwards? Going from the top and moving down clockwise, we would like the West Midlands to be what we call a regulatory sandbox. So some people are saying they're not seeing any slides. Can others see the slides? Can you just nod if you can see? Yeah, some of you can. So I don't know whether it's a browser or whatever issue for you. But if I talk through anyway. So at the top, the regulatory sandbox, we want the West Midlands to be a place where we start to push the boundaries on what's possible. So we want to be able to, we want to test new forms of transport, new ways of being a transport network. And we're really encouraging government to consider us as a place to come and be the place to do innovation. We really want to see a fully digital road network. We want to see mobility hubs, almost like community hubs, become really embedded in our network. We can see micromobility being expanded. At the moment, we know we've got bikes and scooters, electric bikes. What's next? Some of you on the call might know what's next. We want to see sustainable urban logistics. There's lots of deliveries to the door now. And how can we help do that in a sustainable way? What are the methods? We still want to work with mobility credit. So how can we incentivize people to move away from the private single occupancy car? Things like carbon credits. How can we use these techniques? and then continue to move on to what we call an advanced mobility as a service. So what's the next step between just plugging those transport modes together? How can we really create that exciting experience of travelling through the West Midlands to be linked into your lifestyle? We've been very fortunate in the West Midlands to receive funding through the City Region Sustainable Transport Fund. We're currently building a number of business cases that are looking at these particular areas, connecting our places, our healthy streets, inclusive growth, resilient networks, and delivering a green revolution. And as those things develop, we'll share those with you. Really importantly, the government have given us a 5-year funding deal in these areas, which is unusual for local government. It's usually hand to mouth, year to year, but that actually means we can get on and do some big projects and some big pieces of work. So that's been really positive and a really great investment in the West Midlands. So in terms of delivering change, really top, we don't deliver everything ourselves. We have a number of public and private operators and private companies, and we absolutely must work in partnership. So again, if we can create networks and partnerships through some of those on this call, that would be fantastic. We do support the network through subsidies. We do provide infrastructure, and we do try and influence partnerships agreements, not just between us and others, but between other entities that actually would work well together. We are tackling with the combined authority as a whole significant infrastructure challenges, including transport, housing, land remediation. We're trying to accelerate improved transport services. We're trying to think about the built environment and our streets and how we can do that. The devolution of powers is really important. Through the Levelling Up white paper, we've been asked to come back to government. Well, the Mayor has been asked to say, what powers does the West Midlands need? What else should we be brought back locally from central government? So we'll be going back to them on that. And as I say, they have acknowledged through the Levelling Up white paper that short-term bidding historically hasn't really worked. So again, we've been given the opportunity of the City Region's Sustainable Transport Fund to give us that more stability, that longer period of time. So really just wanted to give you a feel for the things that are going on in the West Midlands. And what I'd like to move on to now is just talk about these future meetings. We are proposing that we have a standing agenda for these future meetings, but we're very open, and we'll be in breakout groups later. If there's things that you want to see that's not on this list, or things you want to talk about, or ways of working that we've not included, please let us know. We want to create a group that's for all of us, not just to do what Transport for West Midlands or others want to do. So what we propose that we do on a regular basis, you've not heard from your chair and deputy chair yet. I'm looking forward to hearing from both of them in a moment. And I want to just thank them personally for being agreeing to be part of that process. So we'll start and get them to introduce on what are the hot topics on transport innovation. What's happened since we last met. We always want to hear from the Innovation Alliance. It's a really great way to look across sectors. So it's looking across the various health, sustainability. What we've worked out from the other groups, and my work on the virtual innovation team, is transporting everything. So we've got something to contribute to health, to say to sustainability, to buildings, to everything. We'll try and give you an update on the latest projects that we're working on, what we're developing, and what opportunities are there. We'll try and hook you into funding and project opportunities where we're aware of them. And we think this could be a really good opportunity to just make people aware of some of the things that happen that maybe Transport for West Midlands and others hear about, but some of you don't. So we'll try and be a conduit to let you know funding and opportunities in the transport space. We'd like to invite prominent speakers, around 2 to 3, covering the key themes that you want to talk about, with a panel discussion, so we can really get into the detail of some of these key topics. And we think it'll be a good opportunity for a number of you to either bring a pitch or a briefing to this whole group. So really looking at what new products and services and opportunities there are, or there may be a key topic you want to brief everybody on. These are short and sharp briefings, so we're not talking about 20-minute thing, talking about 3 or 4 minutes just to really let people know about what's happening there. And then we'll let you know what the next meeting arrangements are. So I just wanted to put that out there really to get us started. But again, as we go into breakout groups, please let me know if that feels like the right agenda, that's the right sort of balance. We are also interested in your interest in meeting in person and online or hybrid. So again, we'll be open to hear back from you. So I'll shut up now and hand over to Chris, if that's okay. So Chris is a CEO of Smart Things and the first chair of our Innovative Transport Working Group. So Chris, over to you.
Super, thank you very much. Well, hello everybody. Thanks for that. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Devon. Thanks, Katie. Thanks also to Pam and Ian Mansell from the Alliance for setting all of this up. I felt really privileged to be invited to chair this particular group. I also feel like a little bit of an imposter, actually, in that I don't particularly have a transport background. More recently I do, and I'll tell you very briefly a little bit about that. But it was brilliant to see Chris Perry on the call this morning. Back in 2013, I think, I started talking to Chris Perry, to what was then Centro, about geolocating people on the transport network and giving them better travel advice. I was then working at Cogent Elliott as a creative technologist, they used to call me, trying to bring digital transformation to the various different sectors. And one of our clients was Red Spotted Hanky, a transit brand created by Worldline. Another of our clients was Vodafone, and we decided to use Vodafone to try and geolocate people and give them better advice on where they were travelling. And New Smart Thing was born through that process and through the support of Chris Perry. So thank you very much for that, Chris. Very briefly, I do have a quite broad marketing technology background. Prior to working at Cogent, I had a business selling music online, tickets, downloads, t-shirts, merchandise and such. And that was really born out of the digital revolution in music, which saw incredible innovation and transformation of a sector. And I don't know if any of you guys caught the Today programme this morning. Those that perhaps did will note that today is the day that the iPod has been discontinued. The iPod is an example, I think, of how technology can actually change people's behaviour. Up until that, we would have CD collections, vinyl collections, we would sift through them and play them. We would possibly transport them as we went on holiday. And then the iPod was born, and suddenly all our music was in our pockets, all our tracks were next to each other, and our listening behaviour changed, the industry changed, and that's gone through tremendous change now. Of course, we stream music day to day. So I think a great example of how technology can actually change people's behaviour. I and my colleague Richard were asked to prepare around a 10-minute talk this morning, and now I know that we are behind time, so we'll probably wrestle with the agenda a little bit. They say, I think, when you're doing a presentation that you should limit it to no more than one slide per minute. I think is a sort of genuine general kind of thing. So I've prepared a deck here for you of no less than 34 slides, and we'll try to get through this in, I don't know, it's 5 minutes challenge for 34 slides. We'll see. Can people see my screen there? Super. So the advert for Smart Thing is on the screen there. We specialise in guiding people to major events, what we call the smart way, which means personalised, sustainable and accessible. We do that in many different ways. Using a travel assistant application is the main one, and we integrate with the touch points of major events such as the Commonwealth Games to guide people across transport networks that are disrupted in some way due to major events typically. So moving swiftly on to this presentation, I thought we'd take a little bit of a dive into how technology has driven innovation. So I mentioned 34 slides in under 10 minutes, but 34 slides also covering 200 years of innovation. So we'll do 34 slides in 200 years in under 10 minutes, he says. So firstly, on the screen, you can see, I hope, an Android smoking data. bear that in mind. A fantastic image. Stumbled across this on the internet, hadn't seen it before, and just thought, wow, you know, perhaps that's an example of what we don't want to achieve. So if we look at the things that really do, you know, affect humans in terms of innovation and technology, data perhaps sits at the heart of that. And this image, I think, many people will relate to. The data here, of course, is the height of this little boy on the wall, and the technology in this case is the pen used to scroll upon the wall. There are many examples of how we wrestle with interpreting data. I'm sure we've all done, you know, this in our time and filled in forms and such. And of course, we become ever more precious about the data that we share and protect. And we'll go through countless iterations of username. I'm sure there are those on the call that use the automated username that's generated by you know, one of the operating systems, and there will be those on the call who want to use their own ever more complicated username because they want to remember it when they log in on different platforms and systems. There's no right or wrong on this, but it's an example of how we wrestle with sharing data and wanting to protect it. Sharing data, of course, has gone through the roof with social media, and I think there's a really interesting sort of juxtaposition between protecting our identities and splurging our identities across the internet. Another real example of behavior change and the way that we struggle as humans with that. So the World Economic Forum say trillions of individuals, transactions and behaviors are being recorded each day by billions of connected sensors and devices. Excuse me. We're collecting data on who we are, who we know, what we like, what we dislike, where we go, where we've been, and where we plan to go. And it's that last bit, where we plan to go, that our business specializes in. This volume is growing. Of course, it's creating a bit like the butter mountain of the 70s. We've got a data mountain here that we don't quite know what to do with it. And I love this quote by US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Tamara Schwartz, no less, from her book, The Art of Now, Decision Making and the Big Data Conundrum. Isn't this true? Our capacity to collect data has far outpaced our ability to process it. I have what I affectionately term to as periphery psychosis. People say, I sent you a message. I say, how? What channel? Was it LinkedIn? Was it WhatsApp? Was it Facebook? Was it email? And I spend my time searching for that message. I'm sure you've had similar experiences. So there's data and how we wrestle with it. Let's look at a potted history then of computers. It's interesting to note that the first computers were human beings employed to compute, no less. This is a group of ladies employed by NASA back in the early 50s. The next computers were less human. The Difference Engine by Charles Babbage from 1822. This is where we date back 200 years. And obviously we can see how that's evolved over the years. The ENIAC, electronic numeral integrator and calculator. So machines have started very, very big and they're getting smaller. No surprises there then. Well, this was the first personal computer. Interesting, it's got no screen. Not quite sure what you're supposed to do with the Altar 8800. And then we had the first laptop. And we have a screen, albeit a very small screen. These days, we're used to very small screens, aren't we? So we can see a sort of a progression emerging, I hope. And then the first Apple, which of course was just a circuit board, didn't come with any user interface whatsoever. Perhaps this was reminiscent of the modern day API, where we just put an API out there and we say to engineers and software developers, please develop on our API. And then I'm sure some of the people on the call will have had one of these. Maybe some people learned to code on one of these. I know many of the software engineers in our business did. I didn't learn to code. I was stuck in a comprehensive school, typing out my name and making it appear 1,000 times across the screen on one of these. I don't know if any of you share that affectionate memory with me. And from there, of course, we've gone on leaps and bounds. We now have the cloud. And it's really, I think, important to remember that the cloud is, of course, a metaphor. In fact, these are just great big data centers full of our identity and how we manage our identity. So from data to how we process data using computers to interaction with data. And hopefully this provides some inspiration in terms of innovating and moving forward. So the first app is what I'm claiming. The first app, the ATM machine, the cash point machine, the hole in the wall, effectively the first app, an integration of computers, data, human interaction for a very specific key purpose. I used to cheat in my maths lessons on one of these. Don't know if any of you share that affectionate memory as well. Didn't cheat that much, honest. And then we move on to the personal digital assistant. Does anyone still have one of these knocking about in a drawer, perhaps in their room or in the house somewhere? And the birth, no less, of the internet, which led to this sort of interaction in the workplace, which, you know, I guess we're all a little bit hit and miss about. You know, people essentially glued to their screen. Now we've seen that change sort of quite radically as the internet did what I call jumped out of the box. Jumped out of the screen we were looking at and onto our handheld devices, and a great example of that here. Of course, that created almost social hysteria as we got this internet in our pockets and could share things all over the world. And these are fantastic images that we're now starting to see again, I think, as people get back out to venues and events. But this proliferation of data and digital media and communicating in that way, again, creates a bit of a challenge for us to wrestle with about human interaction. We seem to spend a lot of our time talking to each other through devices, don't we? And this great example from the Science Museum shows how we're trying to retrain ourselves to actually get on in a physical environment and be able to communicate in the ways that we used to before we had all of this digital technology. Another example of the internet jumping back in the box was because of the pandemic. This is our Christmas party at USmartThing, held online. So the internet jumped firmly back in the box for us then, and hopefully it's sort of jumping back out again now, dare we say, post-pandemic. But that was okay, because throughout the pandemic we all had someone to talk to, and I think that, you know, the innovation around you know, voice assistants is one of the phenomenal things that's happened in the last sort of 20 years, and it really makes me think, and hopefully makes you think, about the user interface. Suddenly there is no UI, really. We're just talking to devices and getting lights to switch on and off and music to switch on and off. So some of us can do that really effectively. I have an Amazon Echo. I use it to play music. I'm sure there are people on the call that have managed to wire up their Siri or Echo or voice controlled systems to their lights and can walk into the room when they get home and say, make it ambient, and classical music comes on, the lights fade, and it all works seamlessly. That's quite difficult to achieve. And isn't it fascinating that organizations like Google have tried to upskill us by creating things like the Digital Garage from 2012 to 2019. So they've discontinued the Digital Garage, possibly apart from the pandemic, but I think that you know, they've tried to push that firmly online, really struggling to make this sort of physical presence and reintroduction of physical skills with digital really work for them in a scalable way. So where are we heading? Perhaps this is a vision of the future, where we kind of, you know, become the UI ourselves. We're wearing interesting technology. I kind of hope not. That looks pretty weird. I always still find it weird walking around town and seeing people talk to themselves, seemingly, whilst, you know, talking to others on a mobile. Maybe this then is a different vision of the future, one that we're perhaps all collectively working on together, where the actual environment that we're involved in becomes the user interface. I think one of the best user interfaces that have ever been invented are sliding doors. You walk up to them, they open. Nothing to do, nothing to press, it just happens. And I think that that provides a very interesting sort of touch point and a model for inspiration for how we can create this, you know, interactive physical digital environment as we move forward. So I think the call is, let's innovate, introduce something new, make changes, but let's not create androids that smoke data. I'll leave you with that image and hand you over to Richard, who could perhaps bring things slightly more down to earth. Richard, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Chris. Blimey, how do you follow up that image, eh? Christ, it's yeah, very interesting. What I'll do is I'll just I will share my, here we go. Hopefully it should appear. Can everybody see that? Yeah, great, yes. Great, right. Okay, so yes, thank you, Chris, for your presentation. I must say mine is probably a bit more kind of, I'd say, transport focused. I mean, I'm just going to talk through what kind of really where kind of transport and innovation kind of sits really within the professional service sector. And my name's Richard White. I'm the deputy chair of the group, and I work at Waterman Group basically. And we are doing quite a lot of work in developing these agendas really in terms of sustainable travel, which is very important in this emerging agenda. The active travel side of things as well. So how can transport and innovation also facilitate that across the piece. Electric vehicles, so I've been involved in a lot of electric vehicle charging studies, and trying to get that rolled out to a wider set. Logistics, intelligent transport systems, and mobility as a service. So these are really kind of some of the core components. So basically, my role in this group will be to support Chris and the group to make those connections with those emerging agendas in the field of transport and innovation, and really support individuals to kind of network and make those connections. To promote the group, and also kind of get involved in the topic areas that we decide to push forward as part of a work program. It's a fascinating area to work in, as you all could agree. Oh, I've lost my screen. Let's just share that again. I'll just carry on basically. It's a fascinating area to work in, and we'll be kind of supporting as part of that work program. I mean, just a bit of a background on where I'm coming from. So Waterman Group, we're a multidisciplinary consultancy. We cover planning, we cover engineering, we cover project delivery. We're founded in 1952, so we're 70 years old this year, and we're primarily UK based. So the majority of projects we work on are within Britain. We are responsive to the emerging agendas. The various commissions and developments we work on cover a range of areas, from housing to placemaking to active travel. And I think it's really important how these agendas are developing, because the majority of our clients, being kind of house builders, they're now looking for innovative transport solutions to move away from the traditional kind of predict and provide methodology to more of a decide and provide methodology, whereby they can meet and get past these numerous pressures that Chris Lane spoke about in his earlier presentation. We have a number of interesting projects, from Graven Hill, which is a large-scale development near Bicester. It's a self-built community. It was recently on Grand Designs. It's very bespoke, looking for individual solutions for transport. And there are different motives for change and for movement. And they're looking for solutions like micromobility, like EV, those kind of things. And then it kind of also ties into the placemaking agenda as well, because we're trying to kind of better join up kind of trips. We're looking at improving the quality of areas, and our clients are looking for these solutions. So from my perspective, really, I mean, the most important thing is how transport innovation can improve people's quality of life. We need to get the balance right, and as Chris spoke about in his earlier presentation, we need to move towards something that can address these multitude of agendas which we're facing at the moment, from climate change through to public health concerns, and policy and practice can play a key role, And naturally, with the technological solutions being developed by the industry, but ultimately, transport innovation has a part to play in all elements, from health through to equity, and improving accessibility to environmental benefits and public health. So basically, my contact details will be provided with this slide set. I'll be looking forward to speaking to all of you as part of this role, and I'm really excited to hear how you, what you want to get out of the group and how you can support the group to develop and progress. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Richard. Katie, are you going to take us through the breakout room? Is there a couple more slides that indicate what we need to do next?
Yeah, bear with me. Let's get it up. I'm just going to flick through. So what we're planning to do is we're going to pop everyone into breakout rooms. We've had a conversation with people about being a facilitator for each group. So there's going to be someone in each group that's going to take notes and feedback to us after. What we're going to use is we've got a slide here that's going to give you a little bit of information, just basically showing you what the results were. So we asked everybody, can you all see my screen?
Not
No.
showing at the moment, Katie.
Right, bear with me. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
No, I'll put it up for you, Katie.
Thanks, Chris. There you go, brilliant. So basically, we asked you all about what topics of interest you wanted to talk about, and we counted them all up, and obviously we've listed them here. Obviously, there's going to be lots of other topics that people are interested in. We've just got a selective few here, so feel free to bring up anything that is of interest to you. But this is just to give you an idea of what the results were out of the 8 selections that we put down. This will obviously be in the slide deck for you to have a little look at as well. What we'll do now is we're going to pop everybody into breakout rooms using Jamboard. Chris, I'm going to hand over to you to do a little bit of a intro.
Sure. So hi. So we've, as I say, we are short on time. I think Katie and Devon, we should probably spend no more than a few minutes in the breakout rooms collectively. If, as you put into your breakout room, if you could just quickly do some introductions, and please just say your name, your role, and your organisation, and then you will be able to click the breakout room link. I think we're going to share that in the chat. Is that right, Devon?
Yes, the link to the Jamboards will be in the chat, or is in the chat already. And yeah, I think, Chris, you're going to highlight on this, but at the top left corner of each board, you'll see room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, etc. When we've hit open and you're into your breakout room, please check and see which room you're in, and then only write on the Jamboard that associates with that room. So if you're in room 1, please write on the board for room 1 only. If you're in room 2, please write on the board for room 2 only. It seems like a simple thing to say, but I ran one once and everybody wrote on the board for room 1, and it was a bit stressful for people. So if you just scroll through to find your correct board, that would be very helpful.
I'll just share that, Devon. Can people see? Can people see my screen?
Your background. There we go. Yep.
There we go. So hopefully you can see what Devon is talking about here. Right in the centre at the top there, you can see 1 to 20. Those are the individual breakout rooms. So we can click through them and you can see how they're set up here. If you click on this little post-it note over here, you can create a post-it note. So simply add your thoughts exactly like that to the individual breakout room. and we'll collate the results afterwards. And with that, I think you can send us off, Devon. Is that right?
Yes, if you have any difficulties with the breakout rooms, just click on the People tab, and then you should be able to see my name. Just drop me a private message, and I'll be unceremoniously moving Chris and Rich around to different rooms. So they'll pop in and then they'll disappear unexpectedly at random times. That's Chris Thompson, not Chris Lane, just to clarify that. We'll have you in breakouts for about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and Chris Thompson will lead the feedback discussion. So again, please do make sure that there is someone in your group who's there to feedback on your behalf to the full group. There are some groups where we don't have a facilitator nominated. So just take a second at the start, and we'll see you back in about 20 minutes. Have fun.
One of the things we were talking about, which hopefully the groups have talked a little bit about, is whether we meet online or in person. And clearly, if we're meeting in person, we can swap details and we can swap more information, and set up meetings. But we will try and let you know as much as we are allowed to let you know.
That's it.
Sorry, are we all back now? Because my breakout room just disappeared.
We're all back. Hi, Chris.
We're all back, Chris.
We are together as one.
Excellent.
Again. Very briefly, I think it's probably just worth sharing. This is breakout room 20. I'm just going to flick through the breakout rooms. I'm not sure if anyone's been doing that, but despite the access problems, I think the majority of us have managed to put some really interesting comments and points, which obviously we can take away and digest. So there's all sorts of things going on here. Apologies to those who didn't manage to get a chance to get this working. Because we've got feedback, Devon, from the majority and Katie from the majority here, is it worth us just piloting in on one or two of those that didn't get a chance to access the Jamboard and ask somebody from that group to speak, if indeed they know which group they are?
Absolutely. And if everybody has a chance to speak already, we did have a few people who weren't able to get into breakout rooms. So we did kind of an impromptu pseudo breakout group in the main part of Teams. So we can share some feedback from that as well.
Pretty cool. I think one learning for us, Devon, is I'm not sure people necessarily understood what room they were in. Some clearly did. Do we have anyone from room 4? Is the facilitator from room 4 available? Please wave your hand. No.
Also, we do have 2 people with virtual hands raised. I think you had raised your hands when we were speaking in our breakout discussion. So if I could ask you just to drop your hands virtually, please, just to make it a bit easier for Chris, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
To room 5. Do we have anyone from room 5? No, I'll quickly go through. Shout or forever hold your peace. I'm going to come over to I'm just picking on the rooms where the Jamboard didn't seem to work so well. So number 8, room 8. Anyone from room 8? No. In which case, room 9? No, cool. We'll come on to the ones that I know I've got some content in there in a second. Do we have a room 9? Did somebody whimper there?
No, I've got room 8.
Hi, room 8. How are you doing?
I'm fine, but I wasn't the coordinator. So
No. Did you guys get a chance to talk and introduce each other? Did you make any observations?
yeah, we made some very significant ones. Hopefully those will get fed back and
give us a quick overview, Keith.
So there was only 4 of us in the group. So we've got people from I think from transport department. I don't know if it's still around, and people with specific business interests. I was certainly talking about making it how important when we talk about transport and things that have already been introduced is that transport includes walking and cycling and possibly e-scooters, but privately owned ones, and the importance of looking at what people actually need, which is people love their cars.
Yeah.
Everything that we do should be looking at in Coventry, the Transport Summit said we need to reduce car usage by 58%. So we need to be replacing that with something that people want to use. So a car is at their home, and it can take them to where they want to go. We need to make the alternatives as convenient as that.
Yeah.
So it's a real challenge, and as we were talking about, the cities have been built. We're not going to knock them all down and restart.
Yeah,
and
it's a
places
really
like Coventry, we've got very narrow roads, so you can't add all loads of different transport systems.
It's a great point.
In the available space.
It's a really good point. I think convenience is a real, that's the big blocker to change, isn't it? Convenience. And I totally agree with that. It's a recurring theme. I'm going to quickly come over to one of the other rooms. Room 20. Do we have a facilitator from room 20? Or anyone who was in room 20?
Tim here. I was in room 20.
How'd you do, sir? I can see
Tim.
Jamboard is pretty populated. Do you want to just pick out a couple of quick points?
Yeah, I'm going to do it from memory because I couldn't get on. Yeah, so we talked about maths as the linking technology, and I think we were very keen to explore that. Really keen to go deeper into the personas. Chris, that you were talking about, Chris Lane, you were talking about in your intro, and I think that would be a really interesting topic for us to discover, getting under the skin of the customers and the users, linking to what you just heard from Keith there, Chris. And we were also talking about the agenda and thinking about the ability to do knowledge sharing into this group from other regions and other countries. And I think that would be a really interesting thing to cover as well. So
very good.
I think we've got loads more ideas. I'll leave it at 3.
No, that's brilliant. And I know that the knowledge sharing piece has come up in several of the other groups. I also think that, Chris, one of the things that's really coming out strongly is a better understanding of these personas. It plays to Keith's comment from the previous group, understanding what people want. So let's just go. I'm just going to pick randomly, if that's okay, on a couple of different groups. Anybody from room 18, a facilitator or member of room 18? If we can't find anyone, I'll move swiftly on. Maybe we can. Yeah, hi. Hello.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, Brian Carpenter from Talent. There's 3 of us that managed to get into room 18.
Brilliant.
Really interesting discussions around renewable energies that we might be able to use. We had quite an in-depth discussion around EV infrastructure. With a lot of interest in EV, long deliveries on electric vehicles, but also at the same time sort of having the infrastructure available, etc. When sort of they are available, and them not being available at the moment. So there's quite a lot of discussion around sort of EV markets as well, 5G as well. So yeah, we had quite a few interesting discussions there. We've put a few notes on the board.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that, Brian. That's excellent. I can see various notes on the board. And again, I think, EV infrastructure is perhaps the elephant in the room of transport innovation, isn't it? How we get that to sync with adoption of cars and how those two things tally is a difficult conundrum. So I'm sure we'll come back to those. Okay, just in the interests of getting a couple more in before we sort of round up, let's pick on room 14. Do we have anyone, a facilitator from room 14?
There wasn't a facilitator, but since Jack took notes, I'll volunteer myself to feedback. Personas was something that came up again, so a second vote for talking about that. From my perspective, I think it was a view shared by the group, but I will only speak on my own behalf. I think there's a fantastic amount of knowledge in the group, and it's just interesting to pick very specific topics and go into a deep dive on it. I mean, we talked about different projects coming up, the MFM test bed, for instance. Just kind of going into more detail on it and actually kind of going a level down instead of a more high level approach, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, the whole testbed area is it's fascinating. It's an area that I don't know how many testbeds we've got or where or what they are or how they physically exist. So an overview of that would be great. Let me maybe come back to room 1. I know I started off in room 1. Do we have anyone else from room 1? No. Chris Perry, maybe. Hello, are you there? Picking on you.
Yeah, I'm here. I think we were room 16, weren't we?
Oh, do forgive me, Chris.
That's okay.
Whichever.
Would you mind Chris? Room 16, but hey, just quickly then, the group that I was with, there were just 3 of us. We really interesting, and we spoke about 2 things we'd really like to get. We'd really like help with. So we talked about interchange penalties and how in an on-car world, there's always going to be an interchange penalty, and how can we work to minimise interchange penalties through better information, better physical coordination of locations of services, and how we can make that work. So music's your ears really, Chris, given you smart thing and what you're looking to do with your information. We also had an interesting debate about the safety aspects of people coming back to shared transit, and how we used to talk about a digital divide. We discussed whether there's a safety divide, where I gave the example, I've been down to London twice this week, and to be honest, you'd think COVID probably doesn't exist anymore. Very few people in masks, lots of social activity ongoing, almost like the old days. But there are still, the research shows us, there are people that aren't travelling because they're still concerned about COVID, and perhaps the behaviour of people like me who doesn't wear a mask on public transport, I admit it, might be putting some of those people off. So, how can we innovate to give people either better information or enable shared services to be deemed to be safer by those people that currently aren't travelling, because those people not travelling are actually causing significant issues to our transit systems because they're not providing the revenue that keeps those transit systems going. So I thought that was a really interesting discussion. So yeah, thanks guys for that.
No, thank you very much, Chris. And I know, the revenue point's very, very interesting, isn't it? And how it affects the different modes and networks that we have. I know that within our group, so I was in 3 or 4, I think this was group 1, we talked about difficulties in aggregating information. Not least electric vehicle charge point information seems to be still a bit of the Wild West. I don't think there's one true source of electric vehicle charge point information. And as we get into micro mobility, a comprehensive data set where you can find a scooter in the various different towns and cities across the UK, I don't think exists either. So there are big challenges in pulling data sets together. Maybe I could just pick on a couple of individuals whose names I recognise. It's a bit cheeky of me, but Tracy, Ross, it would be amazing if we could get the benefit of your experience. I know that we've met on various groups and panels in the past. What did you make of the group that you're in and of the overall proceedings today, Tracy?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So I'm from Loughborough University, so I'm in people-centred design. And for those of you that don't know me, so anything around sort of transport service innovations. And in our group, we very much did talk about the people. Funnily enough, it wasn't just me, there was others as well. We were small and perfectly formed. There were only 3 of us. But we had a real focus on the kind of like that user experience, how you understand people, how you understand what people really want. It's really interesting to see kind of about the market segments and personas and so on. We use personas a lot, but people are really messy, and people are really they don't really sit in a box. And if they do sit in a box on one day, they don't really sit in that same box on another day, when the context changes. And Chris talked a lot about data, and we're really interested in how, if you can know more about people and what they're doing, you can offer them, a much better experience. So how do you manage kind of all of that data, your data, to get the benefits, but also to kind of keep control of that around privacy and so on. So other things in our group, we had a fair bit about, we had things around the EV charging infrastructure as well. I know that's kind of a massive thing. If you haven't got the infrastructure, then the innovations aren't going to work. That's very similar with things like drones. That drones are great, if you haven't got the infrastructure around that, then you're not going to be able to maximise the benefits. So that's kind of where we're in our group. Yeah. And one of the main things for me is the kind of, for this group, is the networking. The having those connections with people to enable that collaboration, make things happen, do things in the real world rather than just sit and, write papers about it. So that's not the kind of academics we are. So those kind of networking experiences and opportunities are the perfect thing for us.
Everyone nodded as soon as you said that, Tracy, and I think actually this has worked very, very well online, and we look forward to doing it obviously face to face. There were a couple of things sort of playing to that collaborating and networking that came out of a few of the sessions. One of them was effectively every organisation on the call, and there's a whole raft of supply chain and local authority and transport operators on the call, having a capability statement, so that if we're all members of this working group, we have a capability statement that could be a searchable directory, nothing too complicated, a big long web page for want of a better idea. And the purpose of this would be that whenever we come up against funding opportunities, be they grant funding opportunities or tenders, we have a directory of people who we're connected to within our group and the capability of what they can achieve, so that we can effectively matchmake in order to progress those opportunities. Thank you, Johal. We think it's a great idea. So just if anyone doesn't like the idea or doesn't want to be part of that, if they could let Katie know. And I think what we could do, Katie, is do an outreach to everybody to ask for just some key assets, logo and a bit of a spiel, and I'm sure that we can find a home for that on the web, possibly part of the IAM website. I'm just going to throw it open, if that's okay. Obviously, everyone's, the few people have had a chance to speak. I'm sure there's lots of people who haven't had a chance to speak. Does anyone have a burning point on their mind that they would like to profess or announce to the group? If so, please do just raise hand, and we can come over to you as we go. I can see there's one there under a circle that says +58 on it. Devon, are you able to introduce Robin? Would you
Thank you, Chris. Where's the youth engagement?
The youth engagement. That is a brilliant observation, and I don't know where it is. And we should. Why aren't we outreaching into schools, colleges, universities at any level? Is that the sort of thing you're thinking, Robin?
Absolutely. We were participating in the urban airport in Coventry, and I would say that because that's the soul of what Flight Crowd is about. But to be honest, it is applicable to all mobility solutions. And anything we're doing in the built environment and future mobility, we should be engaging with the youth. And nothing more needs to be said.
It's a great suggestion. I totally agree. Samit, perhaps we could quickly come to you. I think you put your hand up. A quick comment before we have to roll.
No, exactly. I think Robin is right. And in our business model, we work only with the youth team. So be it the students from Brunel University or from the local market and the Kickstarter scheme. And I think it is an enormous opportunity to expose fresh blood and fresh ideas into the business model.
It's great. I can see there are various other people with their hands up. Guys, it's been amazing. What a great session. We are at time. It's 11:30. I know one or two people are leaving already, and we all have things to go and do. So all of those with their hands up and we want to make a point. Katie, are they okay to get back in touch with you with that point? And I think what we can do for the next session is a bit of a recap on what happened here. We can get all those post-it notes collated and start to put some of these initiatives in place. But no, thank you everybody for today. I look forward to continuing in this privileged position of being able to help steer this, but please get in touch with me. I'm easy to find if you've got ideas or thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Cheers,
you,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.